Grace and peace be with you. In the 20th chapter of John's Gospel, the resurrected Christ appears to his disciples who are huddled behind locked doors out of fear and uncertainty. After greeting them with peace, Jesus speaks these words to them: "As the Father has sent me, so I send you." From that moment until this one, the children of God who make up the Church of Jesus Christ have been a people on the move. We are sent people, commissioned to go and make disciples, called to embody Christ's presence in word and in action. God does not have a mission for the church so much as God has a church for the purpose of Christ's mission in the world. In recent months, by forces of circumstance beyond human control, we have been pursuing that God-given mission in new and different ways. The reality of a global pandemic has given rise to creative, powerful, and beautiful ways of being God's sent people, deployed to serve Christ in the world, and empowered by the Spirit to care for each other in tangible ways. It has also been a trying time. We have lamented many missed moments of physical togetherness. We have postponed long-planned events and programs. We have dealt with disappointment and frustration over the uncertainty of the future. There are those among us who have been most profoundly impacted by the virus and its effects. Those who are experiencing pain in many different ways. Those who are sick. Those who are grieving loss. Those whose livelihoods have been upended and whose path forward is unclear. We're seeing hatred, division, violence, anger, and deep pain rock our culture with a desperate cry for a redemptive love and the prophetic voice of the church. These realities beg us to fully engage our mission and identity as God's beloved people on a never-ending mission of compassion, servanthood, and selfless love. This must be the focus of our life together as a congregation and our lives as disciples of Jesus Christ. Recent weeks, I've been reflecting on the remarkable history of this congregation, the spiritual DNA that forms and shapes us. Today, I mark the beginning of my third year as pastor of Second Presbyterian Church. That's 731 days for those keeping track. It should, I think, be humbling for all of us to consider the faithful leadership of this congregation for 182 years. For nearly 2 centuries, Second Presbyterian Church has been sent. In 1840, Second Church moved to its first building, and today, 180 years later, only a plaque stands where our very first building once did. But our church hasn't gone away. 30 years later, we moved again, and now 150 years later, the War Memorial stands next to where our building once was. But our church hasn't gone away. 9 decades later, we were on the move again. This time it was 1959, our building here, 7700 North Meridian Street. And since March 13th, that building has been closed. But our church hasn't gone away. Our church hasn't gone away because you are the church. And now that risen Lord who has shepherded us through the most trying of times is beckoning us forward yet again. In tangible, moving, faithful, courageous ways, the body of Christ has moved beyond church building to building the church in God's world. That is where we are needed right now. Of course, this has always been the way of our faith. The world beyond us will know that we are Christians by our love. Love is the core of who we are. In the earliest days of our movement, the Apostle Paul wrote to communities of Christians who comprised fledgling churches struggling for survival, and Paul was insistent that those who follow Jesus are to be defined by love. The depth of love within our fellowship and the way that love extends beyond it. It was the love of Christ that led to acts of sacrifice for the good of the other. It was that love that led to compassion for the stranger, inclusion of the outsider, care for those most at risk, a pursuit of justice and peace. Our history at Second Presbyterian Church has echoed this scriptural story. As we have established new churches, founded missions, schools, organizations for our neighbors here and around the world, as we have cared for the most vulnerable among us, those seeking hope and healing, as we have been a voice for justice in our community, this work never ends. And so in this unique moment, drawing on the guidance of the Spirit and the strength of this part of Christ's body, I tell you that you are doing something extraordinary. You are embracing a new way of being church, a new way of building church. You're doing it out of love. You're doing it with compassion for those within and those beyond this community. You're doing it with a joyful spirit. You are doing it, I trust, because you recognize what it means to be God's missional people. It means worship that fills us with the Spirit and sends us out renewed. It means extending God's welcome to all. It means worshiping in ways that honor those values. And now is the time to hold fast. My prayer is that as we do, the places we live, the cities and communities we serve will know that we are Christians by our love, that we will offer faithful leadership rooted in what it truly means to be the church. And I pray that we will live into this renewed way of being the church together. I'm moved by the power and witness of the broad diversity of faith communities in our city, how God's people are living with deep faith across our many sacred traditions right now. And this, I believe, is what God requires of the church. Our call is to reflect the love of Christ wherever and whenever. I am convinced now more than ever that this sacred space is a witness to the power of our call. I am convinced now more than ever that we are deployed, we are on the move, we are out there, we are living our faith. And while we will not gather in this space for some time to come, I truly believe that we are building up the church, that we are taking our place in the long line of faithful saints who served and led through Second Presbyterian Church. And so I am grateful for each one of you, for the compassion you share, the support and encouragement you offer, the way you are walking this journey. I truly believe that we are living the love of Jesus Christ, that we are being Christ's body in the world. And I know that by God's grace, the vital mission of this congregation, of God's sent people, will grow even stronger as we hold faith together. May God bless you and this great church.